afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first episode of NCPD TV, First Watch Pro Police News. I am Bert Eyler, and I'm with Jim Fotis, the president of National Center for Police Defense. I am the vice president, and we're going to be hosting this show. We're going to be talking about current events. We're also going to be talking about some of our cases that is coming up. And a little bit later, we're going to have a special guest that's going to come on, Jim, and talk about some law enforcement shootings. I think this person has some good knowledge in it. He's not law enforcement, but he's very pro police. So we'll get started to everybody. Again, my name is Bert Eyler, Vice President of National Center for Police Defense. My background, I was in the Marine Corps. I spent 25 years in law enforcement. I worked for a sheriff's department, Loudoun County Sheriff's Office in Virginia. I also did 22 years with Prince William County, 16 years on the street, and another 6 as a school resource officer. During that time, I met my good friend, Jim Fotis, and I'll turn it over to him. Jim, you want to give everybody a little background on yourself?
Of course, Bert. Thank you. Thank you. Bert and I had chatted. I was running and actually getting ready to leave the Law Enforcement Alliance of America, which I ran for 23 years, where we got several pieces of legislation passed, including H.R. 218, which allowed police officers to carry nationally. It was passed in 2003, signed by President Bush. My background is I was a police officer for 14 years in Lynbrook, New York. I left there as the highest and most decorated officer at the time, and I went to work for the NRA for a short time, and then we started the Law Enforcement Alliance of America. And after 23 years, left there, spoke with Bert, and in 2015 we decided that police needed something. Police were being attacked, devastated, and we saw there was a war on cops. And we said, war on cops is a horrible, horrible thing. Police officers are being attacked, they're being devastated by water bottles, being basically, not treated like police officers should be treated, and as Bert always says, without the law, there'd be chaos. So we decided we would help police officers. We started an organization called National Center for Police Defense, just turned 10 years old in 2025. And now we have helped many, many police officers throughout the United States, and we are growing and we're moving forward. Again, if any police officers, will give you the address and phone number at the end of the show, need help, give us a call.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, so, for everybody's watching, that's what we're about. I mean, we've been working hard to help officers. Recap for 2025, we had some ups and downs. I think a little bit more ups than downs. We did lose a couple cases. I mean, the highlights for our last year was we had Chris Taylor, who during the riots of 2020, he was also involved in a shooting, dealing with a mentally ill, sad to say, mentally ill individual with a knife, and he turned and came at Chris, and Chris shot and killed him. So with Chris Taylor, went to trial. It was a hung jury. They were going after murder for shooting the individual with a knife. They retried him, but they did not try him for murder. They tried him for deadly misconduct, which is, in Texas at the time, was a catch-all charge, which basically, if you use your weapon, even less lethal, anything that may cause death or serious bodily harm, you can charge him under that. They just recently, in September of 2025, the state Congress in Texas put a clause in there for officers. So because of all that, that's what's caused it. So he ended up being found guilty of it, and they appealed it to the appellate court, and the appellate court overwhelmingly overturned it. So he is out. He's working. He's doing well, and still going strong. But that goes to show you, when you have a fairly good justice system, but you had to at least get it to the appellate court where they looked at it and said, no, this is wrong. And that's why we're fighting for a lot of the bills up on Congress. The biggest one, and we can talk later, we're going to have another podcast with PODC dealing with the legislation we're doing up on the Hill, qualified immunity. And that's a big one. I didn't know that we didn't per se have it. And Jim, I'd like you to talk, because you're the one that said, hey, dumbass, you don't have qualified immunity. And can you explain to everybody what qualified immunity is and why we need it?
Right. And just one clarification, you did mention that Garza is the DA that's been in the news recently from Austin, Texas, who wanted to try the three cops. He wanted to put them before the grand jury. And the big thing was he puts everybody, right? He wants to put anybody who has a shooting, any police officer, before a grand jury. And we were wondering here what he was going to charge good cops with. Put them before a grand jury. I just wanted to bring that up. But back to qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is very interesting. Doctors, lawyers, nurses, politicians, they all have qualified immunity. And qualified immunity is if you are working in those professions and you stay within the limits of your profession and you do everything, by the book, by the way you're trained, you are protected under the law, and you cannot be charged with some minor or even bigger crime than somebody would say you committed. So if you're a police officer, you go to somebody's house and you, in the course of your arrest or in the course of helping them, you grab them by the arm and they have an abuse. They have a blue mark or something that might look like you hurt them, or you look at them in a strange way. They can turn around and sue you. And under qualified immunity, you are doing that in the course of your duty. That is something. But right now, without qualified immunity, that lawsuit could actually go to court. So qualified immunity is something that has to pass. Actually, in the beginning, we wrote our own version of qualified immunity based on the law as it stood. And then now Senator Banks has a version of qualified immunity, which is excellent at the federal level, which would protect all law enforcement throughout the United States and possibly federal law enforcement too.
Yeah, that's true. And for everybody's watching, for 25 years I thought I did have qualified immunity. And after we got into this, and Jim was saying you don't, it's amazing of honestly how many officers think don't have it, or think they have it but they don't. And when you have your far left DAs like DA Garza out of Austin, Texas, going after cops, you got to have some type of protection. And I think it'd be nice to try and figure out a way to have officers be able to sue DAs for malicious prosecution. I think there should be some type of federal law on that.
I agree with you, Bert.
Yeah. So hopefully that's something, that down the road we can find somebody, with our, well, even for us with Police Officers Defense Coalition, being up there trying to get something up there.
Bert is up on the hill every week trying to get the best legislation passed for law enforcement in the United States. He is up there working extremely hard to get this legislation passed, and we're very small, and he's doing a bigger job than many of the larger organizations.
We're trying. We're trying. And some of the other good stuff, Alfred Flores out of San Antonio, Texas, they charged him with murder, with an individual coming after him, another mental illness, coming after him with a hammer, and he shot and killed her. And he went up on murder charges, and luckily the jury saw right through it. And, being that, yes, it was a tragic event, and no officer, even you, Jim, and even me, it's like, you don't go out there and say, hey, today I'm going to shoot somebody. No. I mean, that person came after him. It was either shoot or be killed with a claw hammer. So luckily he was acquitted of all charges, so that's really good. We are working with former DEA agent Chad Scott, who's been in prison for 4.5 years. He got railroaded during the Biden administration. He was one of the most, I think, decorated DEA agent at the time down in Louisiana. He was going after some bad people, and some bad cops, and the bad people, criminals he locked up, lied basically on the stand and got him convicted. I mean, his first trial was a hung jury. The second trial lasted 7 or 8 days. The jury took 45 minutes and came back with a guilty on all charges. So we are working right now with him and his attorneys to get a presidential pardon. Right now it's at the pardon attorney in D.C., and we're working on that. And we're also working with Shane Lamon, who is a lieutenant for the D.C. Police Department. He is serving 18 months for obstruction of justice. Now, if you can believe the obstruction of justice, Jim, you know about that, is that as a police officer, he's doing his job. He's getting the intel. And during the J6 incident, he ended up reaching out to the Proud Boy president or founder and said, hey, we got a warrant. So instead of causing a riot, he got him to come in, turned himself in, but they charged Shane with obstruction of justice, and he was found guilty because he told them about the warrant.
Well, the irony with Shane is that he was head of the intelligence unit in D.C.
Correct.
And what do you do if you're
crazy.
head of an intelligence unit? You go out and try and get intelligence from the people that are out there that you think might cause trouble or going to cause trouble.
Yeah, it's crazy. Jim, what I want to talk about now is a little bit some current events. And one of the current events is up in New York, dealing with two young individuals, males, I'm not sure the age, but had makeshift pipe bombs, and they tried to ignite them. Luckily, they didn't go off. And you had the mayor of New York really didn't say it was a terrorist attack. To me, it was. I want to get your opinion on that.
No, I agree it was a terrorist attack. And in fact, they said they represented ISIS. And then when the mayor had his press conference for the two police officers that were the heroes that captured the two terrorists, he basically talked about white supremacy and didn't say much about Islamic terrorism. And I thought it was very interesting what he said. And he went back to 9/11 and said that, when the Trade Center came down, that his mother was relieved, and didn't really talk about honoring the two police officers that were standing there with him. And I thought it was very interesting that they tag these people as ISIS terrorists. And what else? I'm thinking about the future. What else is going to happen with Islamists that are of a different sect going after Mandami? Mandami is an interesting character, and I mean, I don't like any politician like this. And we've seen some real changes. There was just an Islamic politician that was in South Carolina that made some ethnic slurs, and she was knocked out last minute by a Republican. But she was slated to win. And I have to
Yeah.
go back and say in Virginia, I was knocked out today by the fact that uh, the Republican candidate for governor lost by 34%. I think that, if we look at Mandami, he has started a movement across the United States. And the more candidates that we knock out, the more we're going to start reverting back to normal politics. However, you're going to see more and more cells being activated, whether it's ISIS or other Islamic cells. My friend Steve from Colorado, he basically got a uh, email that he intercepted the other day from a terrorist group that was activating another group. He turned it into the FBI and several other
Wow.
places. But these things are going on, and they're going to go on more and more, depending on, even after Epic Fury is over, we're going to see probably several more attacks, maybe even bigger. But I thought it was just interesting that we've got an Islamic mayor in New York being attacked by other Islamics.
Yeah, that's true. Because they found a pipe bomb outside his house or his governor's mansion,
Gracie
right?
Mansion, yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I want to bring in now, because we had a little
Henry.
technical difficulty. We got Henry Morris with Support Our Shields. I got that right this time.
Yes.
I met Henry, last year through with Paula Fitzsimmons. And he came up during Police Week. We're going to do some stuff with him during Police Week. But he's a very, very good supporter of law enforcement. And, when I first met Henry and we were talking, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's black, he's conservative. And he's like, yeah, you're probably meeting the only black guy that lost his black card. I'm like, if you're talking about some laughter, it was hilarious. I'm like, how do you lose your black card? So I'm going to kind of turn that over to Henry to say, how'd you lose your black card?
Yes.
Because you're still black.
Yes. Yes. It's got certain, probably Gen Z won't know where we'll borrow this scene from, but you guys, we'll call this men of a certain age, Lethal Weapon 2, but you're black.
Because you're black. You are. He is.
So it is awesome to be on with you guys, like you said, Bert, how we were connected. And to give you that background of that is when you start speaking out against the race baiters and the poverty pimps that take up a lot of leadership positions in the quote unquote black community. And so when you look at the results, which are terrible, and now because of the modern state of independent media, the country, if not the entire world, gets to see this. Well, they've ran out of people to blame. And so my position, I'm one of those unique people who grew up in this. I'll be 50 years old this year, saw this whole generational destruction, which I think was on purpose, to turn a whole demographic into people to have a victim mindset It's the cops' problem. It's the white man's problem. The man, you guys have heard that now for what, 50 years? It's the man holding me back. And what I found out is when you refuse to adopt that mindset, that victim mentality, and that ideology, well, you become a problem. And this is coming from a guy who literally, my life was changed by positive police officer intervention. You guys know most of my background story, but I'll share it quickly with the audience. Both my parents were functioning alcoholics, so that meant they worked 9 to 5, but weekends especially could get very sketchy because the alcoholism, was out of control. And that led to a lot of police intervention. So this became, a normal part of growing up. And if you come out of that environment, you guys can understand most likely the neighborhood you live in is not going to be the best. So when the crack epidemic exploded in the early to mid 80s, I saw that firsthand, crack houses all over the neighborhood. But I also saw those police departments, Broward County Sheriff's, Fort Lauderdale Police, who were working diligently to get the drug dealers and the drug abusers out of the neighborhood to give kids like me a fighting chance. So that positive reinforcement, that interaction, I was a first generation DARE kid, grow through school. School resource officers would stay late to make sure I could edit in the TV lab. All of these men and women were pouring in to make sure that I didn't follow the path that so many in my neighborhood did. And I did not go into law enforcement. The name Hollywood, of course, I went into media. And that's what gave me the behind the scenes look at how people are being played. That whole defund the police narrative that we saw explode. Remember, if we're accurate, guys, this was actually 2015 with Mike Brown is where this started. That's where BLM originated from, and of course it exploded in 2020. But I got a chance because of working in media for churches all across the United States, and also working on political campaigns all the way from state senate to local city council. The ideology that was running behind the scenes, and you guys touched on it when you talked about Mayor Mondami. This disaster has been in the making for 20 years. They finally got someone that could dupe enough people into falling for socialism in NYC, and as we're seeing, it's going to be a disaster. But of course, they call you the sellout when you decide to speak out against the people who are profiting from making police officers the scapegoat for community and cultural failures that are, in some cases, 7 decades long in the making. So I started some appeals for that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
Well, and they call you a sellout because they can't call you a racist.
Correct. Oh, well, you know what?
Right.
We thought they couldn't, guys, but I've joined Larry Elder in being called the black face of white supremacy. So that's the clown world we're living in now.
That
Unbelievable.
Oh, the black face of white supremacy.
Right.
We gotta make you up some T-shirts.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do it.
I know you'd wear it. I'm gonna have to work on that.
Correct.
That might be a good one.
Correct. But like,
So
yes, go ahead.
The question though is looking back. Like you see, Jim and I both been law enforcement for a long time. He had his generation and then my generation and forward. But you came from something that was terrible, and then you have a lot of people. Well, I was brought up, I had an abusive family or parent, they were this, they were that. You lived it. So what made you who you are and not a drug dealer or a crackhead?
Absolutely. It's a part of my testimony, guys. I definitely think the Lord's hand was in there, and he used police officers, teachers, pastors in that community. And I'll give my parents credit for this, though, especially my dad. He never, and this is one of the major, problems that are like on epidemic level that we see in our country today. For all my dad's mistakes, do you guys know he never came home and blamed the police after he got out of jail? He took accountability for his actions. So my brothers and I saw that modeled in front of us. That he was like, you know what, shouldn't have been drinking. Now he was. You never had to dare him to choke somebody out. He choked out my defensive coordinator. I told you about that bird on the road last year.
Yeah.
My mom said, well, your career's over in the fourth grade. But he would take responsibility.
Yeah, we don't want you on the team. Dad's going to assault us.
Right. But he would take responsibility for his actions. He never believed that because of the color of our skin, you know, that we were victims. And I literally had, and I guys, I probably didn't realize this until maybe 30 years old, that all of those teachers and those coaches and the police officers, Officer Billy, Officer Ira Rubenstein, they were on me for a reason. They, you know, at 13, you think, well, I can't do what everybody else does. You know, you can only see it from a kid's perspective, not realizing they see where the danger that you could be going into. So I literally had people all throughout my life that was dedicated to keeping me out of that neighborhood environment. I got a chance to see life outside of it, and I had to make the decision, do you want to follow that generational path, or do you want something different? And you can't save everybody. You have to remove yourself from that environment. Let this sink in, guys. The zip code that I was born and raised in is 33311. That is the part of Fort Lauderdale that you will never see on a tourist commercial. When I moved away 20 years ago, it was the highest rate of adult illiteracy, and at the same time, the highest rate of new HIV infection. Let that sink in. And the officers that had to deal with that 24/7. And so that's why I said, coming full circle now, the appreciation I have for what you guys did and what your brothers and sisters in blue are still doing. The general public can never understand enough what you go through. And I try to bring that to the forefront, you know, on the media side.
Yeah, no, and we thank you on that one.
We appreciate it. We really do.
Yeah, or amazing. And Jim, I'll bring that up. I mean, his history moving forward, what do you see like generational compared to your law enforcement in what, mid 70s, early 80s till now? Like what kind of difference do you see in policing?
Well, I have to say, where I was, we were on the New York City line, and we had some pretty bad people come from New York City, but not any ethnic. Our bad people were more, we had mob leaders in our town that we had to watch for the FBI. Of course, we had some Black and Hispanic come into town, but I would say at the time, of course, the person I had the shootout with was totally different. He had come from Illinois. He had a bullet in his back from New York City from 5 years earlier. He had been in the Illinois State Pen, and he bought a gun or rented a gun in New York City and somehow got to Lynbrook. The railroad came, and he had stuck up that lady. But our interaction with Black Americans at that time was very minimal. It was usually young white teens and some mob figures doing transport.
Yeah.
But the one person that I had met was just happened to be a guy that he was on a mission. But we did not have a lot of interaction with really bad Blacks at all. So I have to say, and of course, the Hispanic community, again, there were, if you went to Hempstead, which was another town on Long Island, you could basically come up with the same exact what would I say? The same exact makeup as you'd find in New York City. You had definitely sections of each area, but our area was homogeneous, pretty much all middle class white Americans. So we really didn't have a lot to do with it. The only thing that was on the road that we had a lot of people coming through, but that was the only time we actually came into uh, in touch with anybody. And as I say again, very, very few uh, racial problems that we had at that time. But as going forward, it definitely increased.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of, and then
I agree
another
with
two
you.
towns over in Freeport, different makeup
Yeah, I've heard of Freeport.
and different. It's just, and today they're having many, many more problems on Long Island, but also the makeup has changed. But you've also got Black Americans that have raised their social values.
Yes.
So you've got them in white communities and they're living very well and everybody gets along.
Yes.
So I think that things have changed for the better in many, many. And I have to go back to Barack Obama. There is a man that could have changed the world. Instead, he brought it down.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
Well, I'll push back.
Go ahead, Henry.
I'll push back on that. Jay. I don't think that was ever his intent. When you
no, I
really
agree
found
with
out
you.
his
But he,
background, I mean, this was the man. I call him the Manchurian candidate, and that's another thing that got my
yeah,
black card revoked. Daring to speak out against Barack Hussein Obama in 2007, which I did. But I was telling people then, I'm like, this guy is not who he claims to be. So he did exactly what his goal was, which was the
well, he was trained by Saul Alinsky,
bingo,
so you know if you read by it,
rules for
you know.
rappers,
But
right?
I mean, he could have, if he wanted to. I really believe he could have made a difference. But then, you know, the first thing with the professor
Yes,
in Connecticut, oh,
yes,
let's sit down and have a beer, and of course that poor cop, you know, he was chastised for doing his
yes,
job. That was the first thing. The war on cops started.
correct,
Right. Well, I think the whole when the like you said the Ferguson started, but when Black Lives Matter kicked in, I think the biggest thing instead of trying to bridge the gap, they drove the wedge by saying, "Don't listen to cops.
right,
They're racist. Fight them." And then you had politicians and state, federal, and local leaders saying, "Oh yeah, cops are racist.
yeah,
Don't listen to them."
correct.